and welcome to the One Shot Network Design Club. This is a show where we gather game designers who have made games with similar themes. We have them play each other's work, and then we do what we're doing today and discuss our experiences with that work. It is a great way to think about and see in practice the different ways that designers approach similar problems and how that results in different experiences. I am so blessed to be here with a wonderful group of designers today. First up, doing in the same order that I introduced people in 2 days ago, Reynaldo. Reynaldo,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you.
Reynaldo, please, could you tell the people which game you are responsible for designing?
I designed Break with 2 exclamation points. It was the first one we played.
Yes. And next up, we have Andy Lever. Andy, welcome.
Hello, I've designed a game called Skies Above that funded on Kickstarter. It should be going out to people in the next few months. Actually, the PDF copies went
Yeah, I
out
got
in
my email
package
this
today.
morning. Yeah.
Yep. Very, very excited that will be our next game to be featured. Next up, we've got Paulino. Paulino, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me back again. So I'm working on a little game called Opera Eterna, still very much in development, but very excited to share it with you eventually.
And finally, we have the designer of the hour, Joel.
Hello, it's me.
Joel, could you please tell us which game you designed and maybe tell us a little bit about that game because it is the one that we're going to be discussing today.
I'm the designer for Dawn, the RPG, which is the game we played 2 days ago. It's a specifically like shonen battle inspired tactical game that I've put a lot of thought into. It's a little setting agnostic game with lots of crunchy rulings.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot that I think our group is going to get into in talking about that. Before we do, one thing that I wanted to start off, you mentioned that Dawn is like the genesis of it is kind of developing a game for the specific group of people that you were playing with at a specific time in your life. I am curious with that origin point. What was the like development length like on this game? Is this something that was the process of a couple months? Was this years and years of like tinkering, or did it like come together really quickly?
It's a bit of column A, a bit of column B. The original, it was a project called Advent Dawn. It was the it is a much more, honestly, it was despite being originally D&D homebrew stuff, it is mechanically much stranger. It's like a diceless resource spending game that I worked on for like years and years and years, and like just like slowly added like as it was being played by that group of friends. But in between then and the more modern release of Dawn the RPG, I made a lot of games, and I sort of got into a flow state where, or I created a really efficient workflow for myself where I was sort of like, this is both my job, and I spend like job amounts of hours on it, and it
Job
is
amounts
like
of
my
hours.
favorite thing to do. So I make like, I think Dawn is kind of the first game or goodness, Dawn is sort of the transitionary point where I've gone from spending way too much time on games to sort of like knowing what I want immediately and being able to get it out pretty quickly. So the current like version of Dawn that is hopefully available honestly didn't take me too long. I think it took me like a year and a half or something.
Okay. I mean
Yeah.
that's pretty good. Like for the information of our viewers and listeners, Dawn of the games that we're going to discuss is the shortest volume, but being like a tactical game. I had anticipated a longer, I think, development cycle just because there are so many different pieces fitting together.
Mhm.
I am so curious because like it is really important skill to be able to, especially if you're somebody who's very passionate about design, to hone down the process of design into something that is practical. Because you mentioned like starting up a design and being able to get lost in it. I think that's something that happens to a lot of newer designers that I meet. And you mentioned like designing a bunch of games. What do you think taught you that skill? Was it simply just doing game after game after game, or?
I think it was like I made if I'm looking at it, like I think like 5 games of varying size before I made Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
And the last major release I think didn't do very well before Dawn. And I think having like something that I invested like a lot of time into that like wasn't successful and like didn't, not only like financially, which I care a bit less about, but like it didn't really feel like that I had any fans, and I wasn't like super proud of it when it was finished. I think having that made me realize like, okay, I need to like know what I'm doing, and I can't afford to like waste time anymore. And like since then I've had that philosophy of like I want to make sure I'm cutting the fat from everything, and making something that I'm proud of always, whether or not it's like, you know, perfect in the end. I always want to like make sure it's something that is, you know, unique, namely.
Sure. Okay. When you say what makes something unique in your eyes, because this is a discussion that I have with people all the time. I'm a staunch defender of folks who use core systems for their development over the idea of like a unique system is the only way to make something that is an original idea. So what rings to you as unique, especially like in relation to Dawn itself? What do you think made this stand out as something that like you do feel a lot of pride in?
I think this is, I don't know if this is like I'm not sure this is a what I would call my like definition. I don't think this is a valid like point to make for all games when I'm discussing what is unique.
Nobody
But for
should have to be pinned
me,
down to the opinions that they say here because we're doing it so quickly. This
Well,
is
also, I think
months
that's
of
a-
strategic writing.
that is true.
I also think it's a good point that it doesn't have to apply to all games, right? Because depending on what
Mhm.
you're writing, what is unique is very different. You know, what is unique and what works are very different depending on the kind of game you're writing. So I can see what Joel's saying.
Yeah, for me, mechanically, when I say I want my games to be unique, I mostly mean to attempt like a core system that I haven't seen done before, at least in the realm of a, you know, role playing game. And
Okay.
for Dawn, that is mostly like the sort of merging of the like tactical systems and the roleplay stuff with duels and stuff, which we didn't really get into before, but that
Yeah,
is kind of, I
I am
think,
sad that we
one of my
didn't see
favorite.
that in ours. Had I known that there was so much mechanical similarity on the board, I would have made a duelist character.
Yeah, it was kind of like I remember I was sitting here, I'm like, oh man, I was like I'm gonna make the straightforward character because I was pretty sure you all were gonna make much weirder ones. So I wanted to be like the Ryu. Like that's what I was
Sure,
trying to be
yeah.
like Ryu from Street Fighter, essentially.
Mhm.
And in fairness, Paulino's nuclear weapon lady or
Yes.
person, like three round nuke, that was pretty big, and I was glad that showed up because it shows you like the kind of stuff you could do. Um,
Mhm.
and I was also thinking too, like even like I think that's true of all games because even when we came in, I had a lot of fun with our all princess party with Break, but I was a little like, oh man, I wish we had some of the other callings so we could see like the different facets. But that's the thing about games; they're big.
Yeah, and
True,
I do
true.
like that part of it is you did get to see what we as players gravitated towards in developing, and I
That's
think it
true.
was fun to watch all of that come together. But I do wish that I had gotten a chance to see more of the game. But with that, I want to go around, and the first question that I have to our other designers is, what is something about Dawn, like the design, your experience playing with it, that stuck with you that you've been thinking about for the past 2 days, or maybe even before because it came up during character creation? If
I
anyone
have
can
so
jump in.
many things I want to talk about, so I feel like I need to trim it down.
No. I mean, hey, we can also jump into unstructured space. The last discussion, because we had no compare and contrast points and whatnot, it was, I think people were a bit slower to contribute. So if you have a bunch of things that you're burning to talk about, please, Paulino, lead us off.
Okay, well, I'll start with just one of them. How's that? And then we can
Yeah, we
come
could do
back
a
to some
round
of the
robin
others.
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I think like one of the things that really stuck with me was okay. Oh God, which one am I gonna do first? Okay. I think I wanted to right off the bat, like when I started making my character and like reading through the text, there was this section early on in the book where you talked about like how you're positioning like Dawn in relation to shonen and like specifically like Japanese cultural media, and how you're kind of like thinking of your work as like I think there's something that I've been kind of fascinated by lately is this sort of resurgence of like nostalgia, I guess, for Japanese media in a way where we see stuff like Clair Obscur kind of, and also like Fabula Ultima and like these other projects that are looking at various types of, you know, JRPGs, anime, manga, and uh and like trying to create material like in relation to that, but like because a lot of these touchstones are so like culturally specific, one of the early things that's mentioned in the book is like, okay, this is not a shonen game. I forget how exactly you put it, but it was something to the effect of like, this is not a shonen game, but is like thinking of itself in like the genre space and like how it's like relating to that largely. I thought that was just like such an elegant way of phrasing it, and something that's I've been thinking about for my design process too, is like what does it mean to be like excited and inspired by these ideas while still recognizing that there's kind of like a cultural specificity that comes with them.
I thank you so much, because that is something I was absolutely torturing myself over for a while, because there was a lot of very fair criticisms that I had early on from playtesters about like its connection to, or how much Dawn wants to be a analysis of shonen as a genre, and how like, especially in like the Kickstarter marketing and stuff, it was very much presented as a game that is about shonen and battle manga stuff, which is like somewhat true in the way that I was describing there and that you described, but like I wanted to be as specific and as honest as possible in that section, and I'm super glad that came across well.
Yeah, it actually like when I think about all of the games that like we're going through in this series too, the way that I try to position it in my mind is like we're operating off of similar inspiration points. Like there's a lot of JRPG, there's a lot of like anime tied up in what we're doing, but I don't think any one of us would make the claim that, oh, our games are a one-to-one recreation of that.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do like sort of recognizing in the design text like what you're trying to accomplish with it, and what you're looking for people to see in it or take away from it.
It's such a good like it's such an interesting design space. I've been watching a lot of a lot of Ruby recently, that which I did not realize it's like it's still going. I'm almost caught up at
Oh,
this
wow.
point.
I thought that was okay. Wow. I thought that was done.
It's a season 9, even though Rooster Teeth sunk, like the IP's been sold off and season 10 is now in development. Kind of wild.
Yeah, that is wild.
But that's an example of like another like American product like made in connection with like Japanese media. And I think there's something that I was talking with Tyler Crumrine about this. He was saying he's really interested in like the sort of like terroir you can get from like an RPG, like the specific place, the taste of that, the place that it comes from, and like when we're thinking about like these cultural touchstones, like I think it's very clear in Dawn, for instance, that it's um it's from the perspective of like somebody who's like consumed a lot of that media or like has this kind of like ongoing relationship with it. It's not necessarily trying to be it, but there's like that love there that inspires the work.
Thank you.
Something I was saying, kind of related to that. I was saying that the generally like inspiration is a little bit more desirable than just straight emulation, and I feel like a lot of that was with Dawn, where it's like this is still very much your thing. I got a lot of very like and positively got a lot of very personal, like this is a personal work. This is somebody's work, unique work, without it feeling like, okay, this is just, I didn't look at anything, nothing in Dawn made me go, oh, this is just Goku's whatever, on there. I thought it was, and that's always, that's something I think is really good to aspire to, right? You want that stuff to inspire, but you're still making a game in the end. It's a different media and you're coming from a different place. So I think that, yeah, I just wanted to add on to what was being said there. I think it came out really well.
I'm sorry, the chat. The chat just said, I am Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, and I love game design. Well, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mark Carney.
We love game design here as well.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to know we have Canadian fans.
I know you love game design because the great government of Canada is fostering relationships within the game design community. That's how I got to meet our dear friend Lino here. So yes,
Canadians
money into the arts, please.
Government money into the arts. That sounds nice.
I got a couple more grants. I'm hoping.
So proud to meet my prime minister in this stream.
This is.
I hope
so then
that
you're
doesn't happen for my goddamn president. To bring it back to that point of the emulation versus inspiration, I think it is like an interesting balance that gets walked in design too, because while I would say like largely you're right, Reynaldo, like I saw a lot of the abilities and whatnot in Dawn, and I'm like, okay, this does feel like this is taking a thing that you might see and doing analysis and pulling something out to be like, this is this version of this idea. But then I also did see like I think it was like the card game dueling mechanic in there. I'm like, okay, well, I can admit that that's just Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's like
wait a minute.
Cool
that could also be an episode. That could also be an episode of Stardust Crusaders with Darby and his card game. Well,
I think Joel can be honest with us and tell us where we were pulling that thread.
We could ask.
It's. I think it wasn't originally, but then I think it's only when I put in that one level that I just named Greed. I'm pretty sure that was that's Yu-Gi-Oh inspiration there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a Pot of Greed. I draw a card. I play Pot of Greed. I draw a card. I want to shout out something like, I think there's a lot of really fun stuff in there. And again, this was very funny for me to play because just like the VTT I was messing up in, I'm relatively inexperienced when it comes to tactical stuff. So I was really poring over a lot of the things in the book to make sure I didn't make a character that stunk, right? Because and one thing I really enjoyed was I thought tension was a really fun mechanic, and I think it played really well into not only like things to think up from my character, but also it encouraged a lot of the in the moment stuff that I usually go for. So I connected in that because it would change the situation, and it captured what I captured without trying to directly ape the sort of escalation you see in like that shonen battle manga, right? There's always the fights always getting more and more like intense. The moves that coming out are bigger and badder. Like, someone suddenly got a trick up their sleeve that they didn't have before, and I thought that was a really cool way. And that and focus really like played into each other really well. Those two mechanics I thought were very fun.
Absolutely. I want to sing the praises of this even deeper because like I've seen similar concepts in different games. Like when I saw that mechanic originally, my first thought was 13th Age, which has its escalation die, which largely it does affect some abilities, especially as characters level up, but largely just increases the damage that PCs do as combats go on.
Mhm.
What I loved for Tension is how much it got used across the system, how it did feel like not only is it making things more dangerous or more dramatic, even basic moves like the charging up, that gets stronger as tension grows. And the result of that is player options, opportunities people have to use the abilities in their character sheets grow as the combat goes on, which allows like tension to build, like literally, of you are not just doing the thing that could happen in say 4th edition D&D, where I'm going to use my daily right at the top of combat, do the most damage right away, and you start off the combat with like 5 nukes and then everything is kind of slow and petering. It does sort of throttle things up as it goes, and as a player I really, really appreciated what it did for my character and my experience of the game. And as a designer, I was just so impressed at how elegantly it tied a lot of different ideas together.
Thank you. It's when I was bringing up unique mechanics, I didn't bring up tension, just because it wasn't like it was something that came up later in the design. It wasn't like the initial concept,
Right.
but I think it is like the number one mechanic that leads like what makes Dawn as a game like Dawn. Tension has become, I think, the most important part of the game in terms of just like the combat stuff, and
Right.
I really like it. I think I did a good job with that.
To the point where when I saw your little note in there that said you don't have to use tension if you don't wanna, I was like, no, Joel,
Yeah.
don't give them that option. They have to. It's good. It's too good.
I didn't see that note,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
I think
I-
I do want to put in my books, hey, you can make my game bad if you want. You can do it wrong and make it bad if
You
you
have
want.
my permission.
I can't stop you there.
There's some variable tension stuff because for pacing reasons, especially because like
Right.
tactical game, different tables have like weaker or stronger characters. based
Yeah,
on
and I was
experience,
gonna
so
say
it's like-
too, you also included like, oh, if you don't want to, the tier was another cool one where it kept everything, keeps things at certain levels, but then you also had the rules for like the variable tiers and that kind of stuff. So there is that is good. I'm making that joke about how I wouldn't let people change it, but no, that is actually good that you have that, and I think it's explained well enough that if somebody does want to change it, they know what they're changing, right? Because that's usually the big problem with like house ruling is that some people are like they just think things should always be a certain way. They change it without actually playing the game as it is and not understanding what it's supposed to do. Whereas I felt like, okay, I get this looking at it, which is why I was so defensive of this imaginary player taking away tension in the game.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I gave that straw man a solid thrashing about that. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it hit way hard because the tension score at that point was
yeah, the
super
tensions,
high.
that was the problem. And unfortunately,
Andy, I'm curious, what was your takeaway?
Well, unlike Ronaldo, who like clearly put a lot of time into reading the book and figuring out how to make a character that wasn't shit, or I had a pretty busy run up to the one shot, so I pretty much whipped the character up the day before, and jumped into the game blind.
That's RPGs.
Sure.
Which, considering how quickly I was able to pick the game up from a very quick skim over the book to make the character, like that's because like when heard tactical RPG, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be
Yeah, you're like, oh, I can't. Yeah, you can't phone this one in.
oh man. And then the fact that like I was able to jump in and do cool stuff with my character and like combat
Yeah.
didn't drag out and you were constantly thinking about what you wanted to do when it came to your turn. Um, yeah, no, I was really, really like kind of impressed by like having a tactical RPG that played so fast and loose. And I think having things like your tension and the focus are really big contributing parts to that, especially like you if you don't have focus, you can't defend yourself. So yeah, that's obviously going to have an impact on how fast
Mhm.
combat goes. You can either choose to go all in with it and try and take things out as quick as you can, or you can like play with it, balance it. Yeah, I was like really worried when I heard tactical RPG, and then once we got into it, it's like, this is a lot of fun. This is really fast paced. I really, really enjoy this.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I mine sort of dovetails with like notes on tactical too, because again, one of the things I don't think a lot of us, certainly I wouldn't describe my game as a very tactical game. And the presentation of a tactical game being in something that is smaller than a 300-page volume is very impressive. I feel like we get a tactical or something that can call itself a tactical work in a very like compressed package, which is impressive. The thing that blew me away about the efficiency of the tactical design is the way space is incorporated into it and used. And this, I think, is going to be the first like contrast note where I look over to Break and the way Break is using space. And I would say Break's combat use of space is a lot more traditional, right? Like Reynaldo did us the favor of like drawing up those battle maps of those different rooms. And each one is like, this is very representative of the room. But the interesting thing about Break is while it is kind of still representative of the room in a way that actually surprised me when we had our boss fight and it was sort of cornered off in the way you did it, you're always presenting it on the same grid. And movement in Break felt to me like it was more abstract. And
Yeah, definitely. It
tied
was
into
areas versus the grid, which is a very, because I was going to say, I don't think either of us actually do traditional in a way. Because, like, even though I don't use, like, we use areas and stuff in Break, which I would say I usually associate traditional, like, RPG movement with, like, the sort of battle grid you see in, like, D&D and stuff.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is I would say yours is closer to that, and actually the most traditional thing that you have in there is more the navigational fantasy maps, which is traditional to a tradition that is so old that is practically not even thought of as tradition anymore because there are so few games that do it.
Okay. So you're calling me old already. We're only like
Oh, it's not you. It's your
I
ideas
know, I'm
that
teasing,
are
I'm
old
teasing.
and bad and used up and dusty.
yeah, okay. Okay, James.
But no, one of the things that like because with those traditional games, those more war game informed games, I feel like a lot of the exciting potential of movement drains away from the game very quickly as the party surrounds whatever enemy they're fighting, and that's the death of movement. The boss has no incentive to move really because eventually they're running up against penalties that like box them in. And the party doesn't want to move because they just want to, in a circle, hit the same enemy as hard as they can the whole time. Where in Break, doing things like dodging does actually physically move the character on the abstract map, which keeps that game moving. And as the boss was like bouncing back and forth between our characters that whole time, I really did have the thought of, oh my goodness, this combat is so much more dynamic than combat typically is. And part of what is informing that is the ways in which we are limiting space, where we're saying, no, it's just this grid. It's not the more infinite canvas that I again, not to insult Reynaldo's design, but like Reynaldo's things are reflective of the reality that is being represented in the battle, where I think Joel's are almost referential to, relative to, rather than direct, which I found so interesting, because I think the only other game that played with movement in terms of story like that I have played was Jian Shim's Snow Queen, which was so much farther removed from that experience. So I thought it was really cool to see a fresh take on movement and use of space in a tactical game that really did make it feel like it had a lot of life in it.
It kind of games is very important to me. That's kind of all I have to say. It's just I needed to make a tactical game where we could move around more, because I really do love tactility in games, and discussing the statistics behind what's happening on the board is not as interesting to me. Where if we were playing this in a physical space, moving those tokens on the board is really what I want, which is why every time you block, you get pushed back. Every time you dodge, you shift around. I really needed that to be there.
That makes a lot of sense, because that's exactly like in my head. There's a lot of you'd be moving these little guys around, like, or the tokens or whatever you're using. And I actually, I do think that limiting that especially helps John out, because you can really constant by having it always be that same grid, which when I read that, I was initially like, huh, and it's always a 7x7 grid. Okay. But then I realized now, after playing it and kind of, well, even just reading the book, I went, oh, okay, I get it. Because like really what you want to be focusing on is that movement, that tactility, and like, the guys bouncing around, the moves, how your moves move you, and that kind of stuff. And whereas I would say in a game like Break that I made, the sort of importance to the battlefield is like the uniqueness of each one. Like sometimes it might be a puddle of like acid or something, whatever. That's a bad example, but you know what I mean. That becomes important. But in Dawn, in a game as tightly designed as Dawn is, that would actually just be kind of a hindrance if you had to come up with a new battlefield every time. So I think dropping everybody in that sort of standard square gives a lot of room for you to play around and concentrate on the moves, which I thought is really good. I thought that was very clever. And it kind of shows, again, you put a lot of thought into this, keeping this tight and elegant. So
it's also very much designing around like what I want to prep as a GM, since it is a game I do GM a lot to play test.
Right.
I do not like maps.
Whereas I love maps, so it's like that explains a lot. Like that's again, and I think that's true.
Sense.
Yeah, right.
I like maps. I just don't like prepping a new one every session.
I see. I love prepping, but again, you make the game. And I think that's just an overall lesson. You should make the game you want to play, right? Like that's something it's a big one. I want to make, since we did a contrasting point, I want to do a comparison point that I thought was funny. Both Break and Dawn basically have like a warning klaxon for your character when they get hurt, right? And a chance to back out, right? So in Break, when you lose all your hearts, that's when you start taking injuries.
Sure.
And the game is quick to remind you can always run away, right? That's important. Running away is always an option. And that makes sense because Break is a game about being a fantasy adventure, which is, simultaneously, there's a lot of tonal shifts in that. Simultaneously, sometimes you're very heroic, and sometimes you're turning tail and running. I think of that one episode of Delicious in Dungeon where they bravely fight the water elemental for about 3 seconds, and they go, "Oh, this thing can power wash us. We're out of here." And you have the scene where they're like booking it. But in Dawn, when you get hurt enough, you get that you have that choice. Either you're knocked out of the fight, or you risk actual like wounding, right? Or you like an even death and that kind of stuff. And I realized in that moment, that's really important, because in a shonen battle manga, the one thing that characters in that will like literally almost never do is actually run away, right? Yeah. So like, like that, that is not something to do. So Vegeta will like have both his arms snapped like twigs, and he's like, I have you right where I want you, kind of thing, right? And I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what you want. So I like that both games have that moment where you as a player can go, okay, I need to rethink my priorities here. Am I bailing on this combat and figuring something else out? Or am I going to take a risk and stick it out? But the games contextualize it in a way that suits both of them. And I thought that was a very fun comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. I I often think about like I mean the notion of like high consequence gameplay,
Mhm.
and for some like the idea of character death being on the table is important to like preserve that feeling of tension. But I think with so much of like shonen inspired stuff, it's like death really is not the like it it's really tragic when it happens, but it's like there's so many like consequences on the path to that point
Right.
that it feels like escalating the stakes through the wounds is like a really elegant way of sort of like communicating the losses that you'll take along that path, and then also continuing to keep that in the hands of the player. Like I was rereading Forbidden Lands recently, and the notion of like it's easy to get hurt, but it's hard to die was is something that the text tries to communicate. And especially like when we're thinking about Dawn with the tension, things start to become very swingy as the fight goes on, as like that tension builds. And I think that the stakes are kind of appropriate there with
Yeah.
being able to like push in that just a bit longer and hope you can get that lucky hit in.
Yeah, it's a good one. It works very well. I'm going to say that a lot. That it
It's
worked very
Yeah.
well because it does. It worked really well. It was, and which is something too you definitely want. Like I want to also call out, and I apologize if I'm dominating the talk about stuff, but the unstructured play was a really fantastic addition as well. We're talking a lot about the tactical thing, but I really liked that you kind of gave room for more of the improvisational kind of mess around sort of style of play. And we got to see that a bit in the game we played where we were messing around in that mansion and kind of like poking around and like figuring out how I had to figure out how to finesse the food instead of using like, because I wanted to use the right stat. And
Mhm.
like the stuff like the duels is great because there is a way for someone to go, actually, no, I want to do I want to do some crazy stuff. I'm going to throw in and you have to use resources. So it's not something you can arbitrarily throw out there, but you can pull people into that unstructured play so you can play around with your ability and that kind of thing. So I do want to say that is also good. It's the tactical stuff is good, but so is that. So
mhm.
Yeah.
I go ahead,
No,
James.
please, Lino, you go ahead.
Okay. I really would love to talk more about the structured versus unstructured play as well, because like I think that there's something like really interesting from like a design philosophy standpoint here. Because in a lot of ways, like they are, and the text says as much, like they're kind of like these separate games completely detached from each other. Not separate games, but like your character in one does not reflect your character in the other, and it's kind of like the player's job of integrating them together. As similar games that have worked with that, like Icon, I remembered playing a little bit early on with it, and the tactical stuff felt a little bit more daunting to me, so I was like veering more on the sort of less structured part of that kind of system. But like in Dawn, I feel um, the structured and unstructured feel like they're still very much like under the same umbrella. I think there's like when I talk about there being kind of like a philosophical like game design philosophy thing here, it's like the decision to separate versus like integrate these different aspects of play, I think is like a really deliberate choice you have to make as a designer. Um, Whether like these different elements will like feed into one another or interlock in a way, or whether they can like totally detach. I was curious for you, Joel, how like how you feel about that. I guess that's like the loosest way of asking it, but like what what drove you to like make that break there in the middle?
The
Break with
big
0
thing to
exclamation
me,
points.
Yeah, just no exclamation points on that one.
yeah, no exclamation points. The big like difference maker for me is that I primarily view, honestly, primarily view most parts of a game through how you end up designing your characters, and because of that, a lot of time through the class design that a lot of RPGs do. And I become very frustrated with games quickly when a there is a mechanical appeal to a like class or role I want to play that is bagged with these like narrative elements of your characters that I think don't like aren't appealing to me for the same reason. Like in the newest version of D&D, if you want to be a paladin, you have to have a horse, which is just so strange to me because paladin is like the only option you can pick if you want to have a big magical sword that like kills people. And it's like I which immediately pushed me to try to separate the sort of narrative elements of your character design from your mechanical elements of your character design. And as I kept separating, eventually going fully classless, and just going with the sort of like picking up individual features that it is right now. I realized that like there wasn't much tethering combat from non-combat together. And at that point I was like, okay, I can make this much easier for players if I try to be as honest as possible with this and just fully detach the two and present that as a element of the game that you have to be aware of. That sort of just like keeps everyone on the same page and allows me to complete my goals of having those like untethered elements that let you better like make a fully customized character, which is one of my main goals for it.
I really love that. Like this
no.
is the kind of game that I really wanted as like a teen who is like obsessed with like these kinds of systems and whatnot. And it's like it for me, I was always one of my notes that I wrote down here is like this is kind of like the where how did I rate it? It's like this is a great game to make Gandalf. Like the kind of like the
I know exactly what
impulse
you
that you
mean.
have as a teen to or like whatever to be like, how can I take my OC, my or like whatever, and like put them in this system and have them feel like true to themselves in a way that like doesn't compromise like on things like, you know, their abilities and whatnot, but also just like how their character is in the world. And the system really reflects that.
I am so glad that you brought this up, Paulino, because this is something that I think about a lot in terms of like a very specific part of the player experience of games in character creation, the ways in which traditional or even more than traditional, really super crunchy games allow a kind of expressive act simply in making the character.
Oh my God, yes.
I remember for hours and hours playing games like D&D 3.5 or Shadowrun, where I have a dozen manuals in front of me and I'm scouring each one for the very specific abilities and ability combinations that allows me to express whatever little idea I have in my head. I appreciated, especially like to bring us back to the structured versus unstructured conversation here. It feels like Dawn has at least 3 little character creation mini systems built to help you speak about a different part of the kinds of expression that you can do, which does allow you to make a Gandalf, as you point out.
Yeah.
It's something I've gone I think I've pulled away from a bit since like sort of finalizing Dawn, because there is a level of the more that players individually like have to express themselves in making their character, there is a degree where the game is unable to express itself in like what characters are within its
Mhm.
world,
No, that's
which
absolutely true.
is I think doesn't cause much of a problem in Dawn because that's never
No.
been the focus of it. Dawn is, I think, it succeeds at what it wants to do and doesn't like try to tell you otherwise. But for making other games, I think there is a level of like, don't take what I do in this as gospel, because it's like I think even though it works very well in this, like it does cause problems for games that want to express something from the perspective of the author a lot more strongly.
Mhm. I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think Dawn also, even though what I do think is even though it's system agnostic, or I'm sorry, setting agnostic, um, you do include three perfectly viable settings in there that are kind of like, I feel like neatly wrapped around the mechanics, right? Like all three of them, I thought, oh, those are pretty good. You know, I could see
Mhm.
running a game with all of them. So, you know, I still think there is some expression even there. But yeah, I do think you make a good point. It's again, different games require different stuff. So,
Mhm.
um,
I'm really glad you brought up James earlier, the idea of like expressing through mechanics, because that again, another one of my notes that I had is like this notion of like build expression being something that I'm particularly interested in design work, where like the process of like building your character becomes like part of the creative act
Yes.
in play. Like, yeah. And when I was making Kiel, it was like I've been really kind of one of my I always get like obsessed with like individual little like concepts, and then I like wait until I have like a game where I can like play with that a little bit. I've become really obsessed in the last few months with the idea of like uh almost like alien presences in like more fantastical settings. I'm thinking like Genova. I'm thinking like I just
mhm.
watched Golden Wind JoJo
Can't
and
wait
like
to make you play
the
as Cosmic Century Knights. But yeah.
I know I'm excited to play it. And like and so like building Kiel, I was like, oh, I really want something that's like this like foreign body like that feels dangerous and volatile, and it's like the horror by something that almost doesn't even care about you. There's like a cosmic kind of horror concept. And so like
Mhm.
that's all to say, as I was building my character, it was like the elements like the techniques that were started clicking together that really formed like how Kiel was able to like exist in the game, and I was like just so excited by that. And like what you're saying about like the way it communicates, like these systems can communicate setting and whatnot. um I think there's that fun little dance that you can do there in terms of like providing expression within like frameworks.
Mhm.
It's a bit of an abstract kind of thing, but like allowing people to like figure out who their character is in a more in less of like a imposition on the fiction way, and more of like a I'm piecing these like parts of the system together. I'm like putting
Mhm.
together my character build, forming like a picture of a character in the setting is kind of like a bit of a white whale there. Something that I think is really powerful in the design.
Yeah, I was so glad that we had sort of privately decided one of the things that we were going to do is try to build characters that said something about our experience with like battle anime and manga,
Mhm.
sort of representative of whatever era we had sort of come to love the genre through, because the game was really good at empowering that sort of experience. I did feel as I was going through this, oh, I have a lot of options to get at the root of different ideas here. Um, and yeah, I think that is kind of a mark of a good tactical system, which is a weird thing for me to say because I do have experience with tactical games, but like it's certainly not my favorite genre, and I don't play a lot of them these days. But it is something that I strongly admire about it. And I think it's actually a really fun contrast note as I turn back to look at Break, how I loved the way that Break had all of those optional random roles that you could have for your character, which is, another type of character construction that represents a type of game design that I don't usually spend that much time with. It feels closer to an OSR thing, but I was like, oh wow, yeah, it feels like whatever I roll in this circumstance, I'm actually walking away with something that feels really indicative of the space that I want to play in, and it's leading me in a fun direction. It was really cool to see from the other side of like, oh no, I've got this mess of Legos that I can play with and put together something that looks the shape I want it to look.
I think that was something I was excited about too, because I feel like the two contrast really well, because we're probably like, I don't want to say like opposite ends of the gaming genre spectrum, but we're pretty distinct.
Pretty close to opposite.
We're pretty close
distinct.
to opposite. Yeah. To the point, to the yeah, and I think that's really fun, right? Like it's good to see how, and I think it shows more again how different decisions, like we are talking about the point is we're seeing how we all took influence from a similar thing, but went about it different ways. And I think one thing that I can point out, both Joel and I, we have a certain kind of game we wanted to make, like to play, and and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but like we kind of also wanted to make it more inspired by the things we like than like the other stuff in that genre might have been. So, yeah. What do I want to say? I should segue back to Joel. One thing I was really interested in, this is a much less philosophical and much more like kind of boring but question. How did you decide the different like move archetypes, right? Like you have like the vagabond and the powerhouse, and like those are really clear to me. Like that was really easy. Like when I said I wanted to make a sort of Kenshiro Cyborg 009 Kashan guy, I was like, all right, yeah, vagabond and then powerhouse is really easy. But the other ones, I also still looked at the other ones and they were all really interesting. And I'm kind of curious as to like, did you sit down and go, I want this kind of character, or these kind of moves, these kind of moves, these kind of moves? Or were there like did you just kind of start with one and build out from there? How did that come out?
There was a lot of like shifting in what the categories were. I think originally I categorized them off of all of their primary stats. Like there was a big list of body text and there was a big list of technique text
That
and
makes
stuff like
sense.
that. But
Yeah,
eventually I realized that like even though some of techniques were synergistic because they needed the same stat, a lot of them didn't actually move towards the same goals, and you wouldn't want them on the same character.
That's
So I
really
ended up
interesting.
Yeah, I ended up I had a very old Patreon post about this, I think, about like because I was discussing what would like another archetype be that I could add to the book if I ever was going to do one. So I was talking about it, and it's they're all categorized into effectively the pace of play that they aim for. Where Powerhouse is sort of like pace independent. It does not require much tension. It doesn't get better or worse as enemies get stronger. It is sort of a lot of flat value on every attack that you get to apply. Vagabond typically requires a round or two to set up some sort of effect or state that they can use in a later round. So they benefit from more tension and they benefit from having more evasiveness to get that set up safely. Bulwark slows down enemies, offenses, and lets other characters go to higher like pacing plans. Altruist, speeds up allies most of the time, which does the same thing. Disruptor gets to slow the whole game down. Ruiner is sort of like the most extreme version of pacing, and it's all sort of they all aim to do things on different like round counts, typically, in different tension values.
That's so cool.
And that's kind of what unifies them generally, along with being like in the fiction, they all share like a very similar image, I think. That's more so coincidental.
Yeah, I'm actually super with you explaining that. I'm really glad you moved away from just tying them to the stats, because I think it came out much better this way.
Yes, I really like the archetypes.
Yeah, they're very cool.
I fully agree with this, especially because when I was building character, I noticed there were like a series of abilities nested in the different archetypes that I almost went with the idea of tying like egomaniac and dramaturge and like prideful. I can't remember all of them, but there were so many that are like, you get abilities from thinking extremely highly of yourself. And I was I love that every single one of these has a different way to interrogate the same idea. And at like the first rank, it didn't quite make sense. But like, I was like, even with 2 ranks, I could have a character whose entire power base is built up around how much they think they are the hottest shit on the planet. And it would work very well and feel very mechanically different while it's being synergistic, which I thought was like a really fun achievement, and one that can only happen if you are not simply grounding yourself in what the stat says about what something is doing. If you are like adding more flavor to that.
Yeah, with that like more intent-based design, because like egomaniac is one of a few techniques that have no stat scalings. It is just like sort of an entirely. I often phrase it with playtesters as it gives you a bar. It sort of like adds something to the kit of your character that you need to track independently, and has its own like reward and punishment system
right.
that like makes the game more complicated by taking it. And that isn't really a thing I could do if I stuck with like the stat dependent technique categories like I was originally.
I was making a bunch of fighting game jokes while we were playing, but that makes me think of Asuka in Guilty Gear Strive, how he has like 7 bars that other characters don't have.
I love that. Like, I've been thinking a lot about character options as kind of like ways to incorporate complexity on otherwise like simple systems. And I think that like Dawn has a really interesting like framework to build off of, where you have like a set of actions, and it's not like a super small set of actions, but there's a finite set of actions that everyone has access to. And a lot of the techniques, most of them like just like build upon existing stuff, like add new complexity or like new ways of interacting with them in a way that kind of like takes this move set and like allows you to build your character towards like a specific concept, or like have like a unique flavor for the same kinds of things. The clearest example of this is how many abilities provide you with alternate focus options. Like there's one that gives you the ammunition, or like just like all sorts of things that like play around with that core skill set. Just really cool stuff.
I really liked how some of the like technique trees sort of the combo the actions. Like I had the one where I could breathe and then jump, and then I could get a free finisher, and then there's like that. You're always kind of thinking about how you can combo things, and then you can kind of mix and match in stuff from some of the other techniques into that to sort of broaden. Like I'll be honest, I got a lot of choice paralysis when I first looked at all the ability options, but
That's fair.
like once I kind of figured out, okay, like this is how it's going together. This is the sort of character I want to make. It all kind of fell into place. I think going into it with the idea of a character you want to make kind of helps you make those decisions on what techniques. Although I chopped and changed, I was almost took some, like, because it says you can take ability or techniques from multiple archetypes. So I was like toying around the idea of having some powerhouse sort of techniques and alongside the vagabond ones. And
Powerhouse is a good one.
yeah, because it was first time making the character, it was for a one shot. I was like, I don't know how complicated I want to go with making.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I love you mentioning the choice paralysis, because like I definitely felt that as well, and I think part of that is because I I do really enjoy like the strategy and the tactical decision making, and like being able to build a character that feels like I'm doing something that I want to do, but I'm doing it in like the best way I can.
Mm.
Was something it was to a point where like I started reading about a week before, and I was like on the couple of days before, I was like talking to my boyfriends about my builds and being like, so I think if I use this ability, then I'll be able to do this on turn or on like the third turn, and then that will allow me to use this. And I think they had no fucking clue what I was saying,
Right,
but
they're
it
just
was
like,
like
sure,
I just
that's-
needed to
that's great.
externalize.
That is really funny because I was a similar like where I made my character maybe I was reading the book maybe like a week before. I made my character the weekend prior, and I remember going, this cool ability where you move through a guy and do damage.
Mhm.
No one's gonna notice that one. I can't wait to use that. And
I mean, I was so glad that I had a theme to work off of, because that is what I didn't feel too much pressure about choice paralysis because I was like,
right, I was similar where it's like I had a clear idea of what I wanted to do.
yeah, I'm trying to express this idea. And yeah, it was great. And Reynaldo, definitely had the thought of like, oh yeah, I'm going to be the person who just tries to get hit and avoids all the damage. That will
so
allow
cool.
every else to take center stage.
We're gonna be so cool.
So funny.
We really did end up with player 1 and player 2
Yeah,
of like
we
a
were
double
balance
dragon.
swaps.
Yeah, it's just like we were the Ken and Ryu.
Yeah, love to be the Ryu to be the Ken to your Ryu there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, go ahead, Andy.
I just like was thinking of all of the battle manga anime that like I enjoy watching it. It's like things like Samurai Champloo and Rurouni Kenshin, even though it's problematic now.
Yeah.
And like a big fan of samurai sort of fiction and drama, and so I just now wanted to have a sword, and I wanted to be
That's so important.
badass with that sword.
Mm-hmm.
And when I seen the draw slash type abilities that I went with, I was like, yeah, no, that's what I want to go with.
That was very cool. There was a lot of room to be cool like that, which is nice. Yeah. And it was fun to have that we had a weapon and a caster focused character.
Mm-hmm.
And also I cannot forget the mysterious arts of the Fushigi.
Yeah, which is kind of like a weapon-based character.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weapon-based character. You know? Well,
It's something above a weapon.
Yeah. It's just above.
It's more dangerous than a weapon because it's a toy,
Yeah.
and it represents a child's stream of power.
It's really metaphorical.
There's layers.
I probably should have. There's some recipes at the start of the book I probably should have recommended because I think they're pretty easy to miss. But
I saw them and considered it, but I'm like, we're designer club, man.
Yeah, my pride as a game designer would never allow me.
But I can't.
That's fair.
I saw them and ignored them.
That's kind of why I
Yes.
was like, I was the same way. It's like I want everyone to make characters because I'm like, no, we're designers. We want to play in that stuff. And like the pre-gens, the recipes were very good. I looked at all of them. I thought, especially for like, I think that it was nice that you mentioned like, hey, you kind of want to make sure, you kind of want to have a character that functions. If this seems a bit like a tall order for you, here's some recipes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really good because I can see that helping a lot of people. Like I can see that, who aren't huge design nerds who are too prideful not to make a dumb Ryu. But yeah, no, I thought those were good. I forgot to comment on them. They were good to have.
Something that I wanted to steer the conversation towards, because I as we talk about like expressive design in character creation, a thing that I really liked to see was the abilities, because of how much power it puts in the hands of somebody who is making a character from jump. Like I felt that it was very elegantly laid out of which, adjectives were providing like which value, and you spelled out in the text, I think very well of like, hey, this is what is going to constitute a powerful idea because of how broad it is, how much narrative space it takes up, versus this idea is more directed and constrained, and therefore it's less expensive. I had so much fun, like cooking up different abilities, even ones that were unrelated to my character, just because it was so much fun to throw those words together and see what it did.
I did feel bad that I didn't come up with one because I was like, oh, they're so fun. But I was like, well, I have this idea. He's good. I intentionally want to be boring, but I did think of some cool abilities. Like I was like, oh, what if I can control gravity as long as I hold my breath or something? I was like, that's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's actually speaks to a thing about, I would even say, like, I was going to say more modern, and then I immediately thought of JoJo's and realized how untrue it was. But like a thing of that happens in battle anime and manga, where the abilities are so unique and so weird, like just extraordinarily distinct, because they do have like, yeah, I've got this limitation and this freedom, and I've mixed them together to create something completely buck wild, which is what the one that I walked away with, being able to control toys in my body. I'm like, it didn't cost so much, but I feel like this is so powerful. Like,
I had similar thoughts. Like it kind of, the abilities kind of embody a couple of different things for me. One is that they really feel like a bit of a language game in a really cool way. Like, I mean, to pull some other comparisons, like I less so here with like, but like Numenera's kind of character creation.
Actually that's a good point of comparison.
It's what I want Numenera's character creation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then, but also even looking at like the forthcoming Realis, like these kinds of like use of language as mechanic here feels like it plays on the notion of rules as both something that's like permissive and exemptive, and like really structures how you can engage with the fiction. And I thought that was really fun, particularly as like the accursed, because I didn't take this, but one of my boons removes can from my sentence. And so it becomes like a mandatory thing that my power activates whenever the condition is met. So it's like there's such a lovely like there's such a lovely amount of storytelling that's just done through that ability alone. And I think that it could even be like pushed in different ways. And it also really gets to, like we're talking about JoJo, it really gets to that kind of like teen experience of like, well, who would win in this scenario? Like, let's do our power scaling of our different characters and figure out like how we're going to utilize our specific things to overcome the duel. Like, it felt like that kind of like, I don't know, for lack of a better word or a better expression, like a teen boys kind of like fantasy.
Sure. Yeah.
Positive.
Yeah,
positive. It's kind of like when we were playing, and I said, this is such an anime club game, positive. Like it's the same kind of feeling where it's like, it's very good at that. And I think that's good. I think like one of the things I like the best about like tabletop games in general, or tabletop RPGs, I should say, because board games are also tabletop games, but tabletop RPGs is they let you sort of take those kinds of things like the power scaling or like, whatever, and give a little structure to it so you can kind of share that easier with the people with around you and have like a more fun experience, a more constructive one. So I really felt that. It was very cool. Like I said, I'm going to say that
pointing out the word-based ability creation has a lot in common with stands and Nen and Hunter x Hunter.
Yes.
Or stands from JoJo and Nen and Hunter x Hunter. I fully agree. And the thing I think that impressed me or made me excited about it is, as a designer, I'm loving it, but this is a thing that you have decided to put in the hands of anyone who is playing the game. And I liked the way that you laid it out. To me, design is a practice of curating an environment for people to produce their own expressive experiences. You have taken the vast space of come up with an anime ability and put it to this like 3-segment chart where people are making very simple decisions, where you've provided a lot of concrete things that they can work off of, but those are also, thanks to your text box, like acting as examples, and they can make their own in conversation with the GM. It's just like, this is such a cool and empowering practice that the game does, and especially because you are really tying it to the unstructured space, it's almost impossible for people to go too far with this too.
Right. That's a good point.
That's another big reason why I unpaired combat from non-combat stuff, because
Right.
it let me just do whatever I want with abilities, and that was like, so it relieves a lot of tension in the system that like could show up if I let people have like quote unquote too much fun.
It reminds me, it makes me think a bit like, not the reverse of this reminds me of in the old Vampire the Masquerade game, one of the vampire types basically got super speed.
Yeah.
And what was really funny about this is if they took that, they were better at fighting than the vampires that were supposed to be good at fighting, right? Because they moved at super speed. So you could make a guy who was like, I'm the fight vampire. I have all the fight vampire powers. And like what is essentially the drama kid vampire type can kick your ass because he took one super speed power. And so I think, like you were saying, decoupling it like that, I can play weather report from JoJo, where if I touch people, they turn into snails in unstructured play. But as soon as we have structured play, it's like, well, Ray, you're going to have to hit him with an ability. You can't just turn him into a snail. Wait until I get 4 focus,
I need to charge up my snails.
Right, let's charge up my snail.
Oh gosh, I hesitant to go too much deeper because I know we don't have too much time left, but
hit us
I
with
did
something
want
big.
to
Yeah.
this is like very very in the weeds a little bit in terms of like creating tactical depth, but like I've been thinking a lot about the fact that you included both I think they were called like stride and then or jump and then stride
Yeah.
as like distinct movement abilities as part of like the lineup. Like I there is something that like feels really nice about a way that like a game can pare down the player's vocabulary and how they're able to engage with the systems, but the places where you add depth or like expand on that vocabulary can equally create a lot of like tactical depth. And one of the things that I was most excited about with Dawn was like the places that you chose to expand that vocabulary, whether it's in terms of like damage mitigation, but or like movement, like they all become these really detailed like spaces for characters to like accomplish the same goals, but through like very different means. And then can like also interact with each other in really fun ways. I thought it was just like a really exciting kind of design space that you were playing with here, and like allowed for some really fun stuff in terms of character building and in terms of just like the tactical depth that you created, again in like a very succinct kind of package.
Yeah, I think that's something I appreciate that you took notice of that, especially because I generally have 2 discussions about this game since I've started working on it, and that is with people who respect my work but do not know anything about the game. And the second is people who know a lot about the game but are like here to make the game better and not to talk about like the art of the work, which is, I appreciate both groups to a great degree, but I very rarely get to go into discussions about the game with people who have played it, and that is one of those things, along with a lot of other things people have brought up here, but like specifically that like choosing to separate what could be a single action into multiple actions in order to like allow for them to be modified in different ways and have like that amount of little like semantic differences is something that I think is like one of the most important decisions like that came in making the roster of actions, but isn't something that you notice until you've played it.
Sure.
No, there's a lot.
100%.
Yeah. There's a lot in there that I think is you've got to either have to be reading the book extensively or playing it to go, oh, okay, this is how this works together. And also too, it is the breaking up between stride and jump. They are distinct from one another, like mechanically. They do different things. And I'm like, oh, cool. And that also, again, that gives you a lot of room to like, play around like, because anime characters, or especially in battle manga, they do move like that, right? They do. They're in big sprints or like backflips and jumps and that kind of stuff. Right? Though, I guess Jotaro and Dio did casually saunter up to one another. So
that's a class. They were in a duel, of course.
They were in a duel. No, there's no way. There's no way. The last couple episodes of JoJo of Stardust Crusaders is the two hammiest players just going at it in a duel. Like
I think that's exactly right.
I would like to roll my break roll to drop a steamroller on top of the other guy.
It's that like the discussion that we've had, like the point before that on abilities and like on duels and everything is like it's why I'm a little disappointed that we only have time for a one shot each, because so many I think of this game systems are things that will only come up after like minimum 5 sessions of play. But absolutely, I'm glad people are picking up on it. Like even if we didn't get to play with them specifically, just like
I mean, here's the thing.
I think you can see the consequences just through playing and then knowing what the rules are.
We're making this up as we go. I know that I want to get everybody's game on the table very quickly, but like after that happens, who's to say
Who knows?
Where we go or what we do from there? Especially because like we did miss this major part of the game that I feel is very important, the dueling. And a paranoia that I have in being an actual player, an actual play person who is playing with a bunch of designers. I feel like anytime I listen back or watch back something, I'm taking up a lot of space. And so I very intentionally leaned away from, well, I don't want to be the dual guy, because that is the person who says, I want to take away from the combat to have a special mini game about me and my guy. And
this is for me.
Totally fair. Again, well, that's why it's like a once per 5 sessions thing. It's it's very
that
greedy,
I thought was
greedy.
I actually laughed out loud when it said once in 5 sessions, because I know you're exactly stopping a particular kind of player who's like, well, every fight I'm gonna have a duel. Like you make it keeps it good and it keeps it good and like unique and stuff, and it means you actually really think hard if I'm going to invoke it this time around. Like, so
I do fully want to see what it would look like to have 4 separate duels, because that is how anime treats it.
That is how it goes, right? Because they'll cut from one guy, and you'll like the good guys will start losing the fight, and then it loops back around, and you find out, I don't know, your bubble powers didn't work on me because it turns out I've been immune to bubbles my whole life or something.
Just gotta buy into the bullshit. I love it.
You got a full buy-in. I think that's important. Whenever you play a game, you gotta buy in. And that is true. It would be fun to see more of everyone's game, because I think like at least both Break and Dawn, I think both have a lot that comes up later. And I imagine it's similar with Skies Above and Cosmic Century Nights, and a little bit of Opera Eterna, because I have seen a little bit of that. So that one, that's all of them are really exciting. If only we all had infinite time.
Brother,
as long as we're all reading the books, we'll at least get a bit.
That's true. And I think if we're all as conscious as we've been trying to be, where we look at the book and really think about it, at least we can throw that out there, and somebody else can go, you know what? I want to duel every 5 sessions. I should get this Dawn game from Lionsgate.
That's true. If you in the audience want to duel your friend,
Duel your friends. If you want to have as much fun we had, I did almost play. Since I was doing Fist of the North Star, when they saw the ammunition one, I did almost play this one-shot bad guy from Fist of the North Star who just threw dynamite at people. He lives on in memes because everybody shares that one clip of him going, "Is your martial art just throwing dynamite at people?" And he goes, "Whatever works."
Sure.
Like,
Like my initial idea was, I don't know if anybody will remember this anime, Shadow Skill.
oh my gosh, I have a friend of mine loves Shadow Skill. He had to sit down and watch the entire show. It was actually pretty good. So yeah, I remember Shadow
I want to
Skill.
make a character like that like just cut people in half with kicks and stuff, but
Yeah, I think Aki had a little Shadow Skill in her, just a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fun, silly stuff in that one too.
Adding that to my watch list.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Ever increasing watch list.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Very 90s.
Very 90s. Fun fact is the main character of Shadow Skill has the same voice actress as Lena Inverse in The Slayers.
Oh.
So every time I watch it, I'm always delighted because I always thought she was a fun voice actress. So
Yeah, I really like the voice. It's like very much of the time, but it's still like the voice.
well, I mean, all anime is very much of the time.
Yeah.
Sure.
In fairness.
Joel, I have a designer question for you, which is a game like this, because it's got the big building blocks aspect to character creation and whatnot, as a player, and especially somebody who came up in like the D&D 3.5 era, I could definitely sink into expansion after expansion that are just more abilities and more whatever. As you think about this game, like, this is something that I've done, you've moved on to other work. Is there ever a temptation to go, oh, but I do have a cool idea? Would you enter into like expansion space for your games? And how do you go about thinking about that sort of thing?
Think about it a lot because I'm gonna be releasing more and more books. I know I will. But specifically the subject of actual mechanical expansion has proved to be harder than I thought.
Wow.
I put so much into the game already that it's like all of the things that I know I want to be in a game of Dawn are already in there.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah.
a lot of the things that I've done, I have like some I've for a few months I did like monthly Patreon posts where I did 4 techniques or 4 enemies, or like 2 techniques and 2 enemies, and just like little themed posts which have been nice. But
Yeah, those are
generally I
fun.
think those have been very like tertiary things. I don't think most people would be interested in, as like if those were all in the main book, I think they would be in like the bottom percentile of pick rates among players and GMs. Not because they're bad, but because
No,
they're
I know
very
what you mean.
specific. Super specific. So when
Low
I've been
tier
thinking,
play.
like, exactly. When I've been thinking of like what I want to release as actual like things that I think people would want to actually like pay for Dawn, it is mostly like modules and adventures and sort of like setting stuff
Yeah,
that
I
I
think that
think
would be
have been a
good.
lot more helpful for people. Like the quick start, I think was very good. I really like the quick start, and I want to do like another 2 modules, like so I have one for every setting and stuff like that. And I think I think they'll be more helpful to more people than more
Yes.
techniques and stuff. But who knows? Maybe in the next one I'll include like a few that are based on the setting. Like,
I was gonna say
always
you could.
try.
Yeah, and I was gonna say selfishly, I'd love to see what you would do with like more of the setting stuff. I think it would be
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah,
So
I'd love to see one of the settings like fleshed out. Like,
Extraordinarily
like
selfishly, I think you should experimentally add a bunch of new character abilities and see how it does. Because I do know if I was 19 and my GM brought us Dawn, I would be I would buy every expansion for it after the first session playing. I guarantee that, because I would be scouring them for more stuff to do.
You could also
I just might.
you could also go more specific with them, right? So like we joked about the Yu-Gi-Oh kind of card one, but you could do more of that, like more specifically, like, okay, I want to do a whole book where it's all about magic users, right? Like all about like
Yes.
elemental magic users or something like that. And
I
so that
really
would
want
be,
to.
yeah, that would be really fun.
Currently, my only like official release is the quick start in the existing setting. But I think like the two kinds of things I'd want to do would be module in an existing setting
Mhm.
and a new setting with a handful of new abilities that are based
Mhm.
on the setting.
Oh,
And
cool,
just
that's
the
fun. Yeah.
basic setting
That would be
guide.
pretty fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like
that'd
that.
be
I like that.
Yeah.
I talked about it on the Discord a bit, but I want to do like a ghost hunting like JJK Chainsaw Man one.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
like
I need you, if you ever make that, that's really important to me specifically because I really want to play someone who gets more powerful when they have to work overtime, because that's the most I've related to an anime character in many years.
Yeah,
Was
I wrote up like a faux like optional rule in just like in the Discord fucking text format of that's just how to cheat, which is like a variant of dueling, which
Mhm.
lets you like negate other people's abilities because yours like just is totally against it for
Yeah.
That's
whatever
so cool.
reason.
That's great.
It's something I really want to do, but I'll never know if like it'll actually release that.
It has
You-
just occurred to me that we've gone this entire time and I haven't brought up a thing that I was so curious about and actually called out during our play session, which is some of the GM facing mechanics. One of the things that I was so excited about when you explained it was that our boss was built out of 3 other characters acting as a single character. I thought that was such an elegant solution to make a boss dynamic. And it really translated to a very fun experience.
Oh, that was very cool too.
And the aces, oh my god, like the encounter design stuff that you had going on was, yeah, wild. Like I didn't touch very much reading it from the player's end, but like playing through it, that's been such a thing that I've been like really chasing, is like how to keep encounters feeling like they're dynamic and changing, and like, you know, the space around you is shifting. Like, how are you keeping things fresh? Like there's such a really nice pacing with that.
Um, This does actually remind me one more point of comparison, and we're running out of time here, so I'm sorry, but I thought that was really fun. The compound enemy was a really fun idea because in Break there are colossal enemies, and I think that it really expresses the kind of differences we were talking about, because the colossal enemy turns the giant monster into a sort of mini dungeon that you have to go through because you have to climb around it and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And
I really want
in
to play that.
yeah, yeah.
Those
Cool.
rules.
that's neat.
Whereas the compound enemy is, like you're saying, it's 3 enemies, and I think that shows the sort of what both games are prioritizing and kind of the spirit of both games really well in a fun way, and like they're weirdo boss monsters. And I think that's the kind of thing, especially it gives the DM something fun to play with, or the GM something fun to play with. It was very cool. I liked it a lot. And I liked how you kept calling it out, and like when you would defeat one of the enemies, the tension came up and that kind of stuff. It was neat. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, I really like
I
that
think
from
it's
a GM
emblematic
standpoint.
of like the inspirations of like Break is very much like classical fantasy. Like the scariest thing you're gonna see is a really big fucking lizard,
Right.
and for Dawn, it's like sort of the more like modern shonen archetypes where it's like the scariest thing you're gonna see is like one guy in a sweet
One
suit
guy,
after
yeah.
fighting a horde of enemies. Right. So like
That's a
combat
very good
enemies
point.
lets you like stack the power of 10 dudes into one guy in a suit, and that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
It's like you know, the Break has got like the big Final Fantasy or Shadow of the Colossus guy stomping around, whereas in Dawn it's Lord Frieza. That's the guy you don't want to deal with, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. All of the like I think like successful decisions I've made with the encounter prep stuff is just the initial rule of like all action economy is always equalized, like it's always one enemy
Mhm.
turn per player turn, And then
Mhm.
everything else just came like, how do I add like one enemy that has a lot of variety in actions? Oh, just give them multiple like move sets.
Yeah, yeah.
Or how do I make like one enemy do different things on different turns? Oh, make it like dependent on a resource. And
Right.
then all of that sort of was born from that decision to equalize the action economy and then create enemies or just like NPC archetypes that were designed around that like sort of very formative ruling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Very, very cool. Folks, we are, I think, kind of at the end of our discussion. Not that there isn't more to say about this game, but we
It's a
have
lot.
one human lifetime. And for Andy, it is extraordinarily late.
Oh yeah, it's right.
So I want to say Design Club will be back. The next game that we are going to be playing is going to be Skies Above by Andy Lever. I'm really looking forward to that. We will... I suspect the range that we're looking at is like February or March. Again, just to have a lot ahead, because there are also things that might not be in a digestible form for us all to read yet, because Andy is still working on the book itself. But I'm really, really excited about it. I hope you all enjoyed this discussion. Before we go, I'm going to turn to Joel. Joel, where is the best place for people to pick up Dawn if they're excited about the book, if they want to have some of these experiences at their own tables?
Well, there's two main ones, if you'll let me.
Please.
Depending on if you want just the digital copy, my itch page will always have the most updated version of Dawn. There are some delays that come in with other services, so itch is always going to be your best bet there. And I think if you are looking for a physical copy, the pre-orders on Linewing Publishing's website are still up for you to pre-order the physical, the print for Dawn, which will also come with the PDFs for Dawn and the quick start module, Tale of Sea and Stars.
Excellent. And Joel, if folks have follow-up questions that they want to ask you, where's the best place they can find you, your work, and get a hold of you?
You can find anything you need from me at joelhappyhill.card.co. But if you want to generally just get like all the news about me easily, you should follow me on Blue Sky, where it's where I'm most active right now.
Excellent. Reynaldo, where can folks get a hold of you?
I'm also on Blue Sky, but I'm also breakrpg.com. It's the best place to go. We have the link to the blog there, which I update a bunch, so you can check that out.
Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I'm also usually on Blue Sky at Lost Heaven Art on Blue Sky.
Excellent. And Lino?
Yeah, you can find me all over the internet. Start with magnolian.card.co, and then you can connect with me on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on a bunch of places. Yeah, I'd love to see you around.
Excellent. And of course, you can find me on Blue Sky at One Shot RPG. You can find my books wherever books are sold under the Ultimate RPG line. You can find my podcasts on your podcatchers. That is Campaign Skyjacks or Starwall, spelled like narwhal. And the Ultimate RPG podcast, which is I'm going to have the next season coming soon. That is my little show where I interview game designers and I have them do character building or world building discussions with me. So it's a lot of fun. Be sure to check all of that out. And of course, watch on social media for when we announce the next meeting of the One Shot Network Design Club. And with all of that, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.